Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot, and welcome back to the golden era of aviation. Today we're going to do our first flight in the iniBuilds L-1011 TriStar, and we're going to do this on an absolute TriStar classic, flying from Düsseldorf to Palma de Mallorca in the beautiful LTU livery. Today we're going to take the airplane through its paces, doing conventional INS navigation as well as doing some raw data VOR flying on both our way in and out from Düsseldorf Airport. Now, I'd say we are not going to lose any time, but just get straight into our 1011 and board through the one left door, making our way up to the flight deck over here. And then we can have a look into our office. Now, before we are going to start with any of the actual airplane setup stuff, let's just go ahead and have a look at a couple basics over here. First of all, we do want a GPU, of course. Then let's go down to the OFP and just reload it to be sure we got the latest version available to us. Flying the LTU Flight 184 from Düsseldorf to Palma on the Delta Alpha Echo Romeo Kilo. I'm going to spare you going through the entire flight plan. Basically all you need to know is in Palma it's a little windy, in our alternate in Ibiza it's quite okay, so we are going to use 25 tons of fuel. So let's go down to the load sheet, import that stuff from SimBrief, and then we can just change that fuel here. 25.0 load. Didn't I say load? 25 load. Alright, here we go. And that's what we need. On the ground page we do have a GPU connected, we got the door one left open, and that's it. And I'd say from here we are gonna go right into setting the airplane up for today's flight. Now, the TriStar is a 3-pilot airplane. You can completely automate the flight engineer's job if you want to. iniBuilds has included lovely AI that can do all of that. However, we are not going to do that. We are going to do that stuff manually because, hey, where would the fun be of flying an airplane like this when we wouldn't operate the most complex panel in the entire flight deck ourselves? Alright, then I'd say we can get right into this and start with the cockpit safety inspection, which is gear lever down, flaps handle up, ignition and fuel switches are off, speed brake handle forward, the ATMs are off, and no, you're not gonna get any money if you turn those on prematurely, and the AC hydraulic pumps are off down there. Then we can go ahead and take a seat on the flight engineer's panel like this and start with our setup. So, first of all, we are going to start the electrical system, so let's start by turning on the standby power system. The unload light is showing, the standby power flow bar is showing, then we can turn that battery on and just check the battery bus is okay, DC standby bus is okay, and then let's just go ahead and arm that standby power system. Then external power is coming on, and the first thing we are going to do now is to turn on a couple of those lights down there and down there so that we have a little bit of light on our flight engineer's panel over here. Now, next up we are going to start with the fire tests, so that's up here, both systems. Unfortunately the bell cutout switch sometimes seems to buck a little around before it actually starts operating here, but here we go. Fire test is successful, and then we can just go right down here. AC power meter on external power, and we got the battery as well. That's all looking fantastic. It is a little cold outside. After all, it's just the start of the summer flight plan, so let's go ahead and start the APU as well. So APU master power switch is going to come on, then we do need one of those fuel pumps. And then we press and hold the APU starter until the door in transit light comes on like this, and with that our APU start is in progress. Well, I'll just give that a little time to power up, and while we're waiting for that to happen, we can have a very quick look back in the front, start turning up a couple more lights. So we got engine instruments down there, we got the center console lights, then we got the instrument lights, we got the glare shield lights, We also have the instrument lights over here, and then we got a couple more lights on the overhead panel. So that's some lights, and hey, let's turn on the instrument panel lights for the light panel as well. Okay, we got the logo light, we got the position lights, and with that we have now started up all those lights. Alright, the APU is operating, so let's go ahead and apply electrical power, closing the generator field breaker and the generator breaker on those sides, and then we can move up to the air conditioning panel. Isolation valve on, cross bleed valves on, hot air and isolation valves on, and finally, with all of that done, APU bleed air shutoff valve open. And now we do get pressure in the ducts, so our packs are operating. Okay, lovely. So that's all done. Now, before we continue with the rest of our setup on the engineer station, we are going to go right up front again and start a bit of a setup from the captain's point of view. Most importantly, we are going to start the INS alignment sequence, because when this is set to realistic, you will see that it actually does take a little bit of time here. So we put all 3 INS mode selectors into align. Then we can move right down here. So position shows 0, 72, 0, that looks good. Then we can test the INS unit. That's looking fantastic. And then back into the position switch, and we can grab some charts. Düsseldorf Airport, we're at stand Bravo 3, so let's get the parking gate coordinate chart. Looking for Bravo 3, which is up here, 5116.8 north. So north 5116.8, insert, and we are at 645.8 east. Like that. Okay, present position is inserted, and now the countdown timer is going to start, which indicates that alignment is in process. Okay, we gotta do the same on the other units real quick. So that's 5116.8 and east 006.458 insert, and the same down here. So 5116.8 and east 006.458. Is that correct? Yes, it is. Alright, and insert. Okay, so with that, our INSs are starting to align. We can follow the sequence down here. When that number reaches 0, then we are, or reaches 2, then we are basically done with the alignment sequence. So that's what goes into this. Now, with that thing in progress, we can return to the flight engineer station and start our flight setup. Now, with that in progress, I'm also going to call for GSX to commence the boarding of our flight. And let's also turn one of the galley power buses on, so that they get some power to start making coffees in the back. All right. Now, let's go ahead and get started with the preliminary cockpit preparation, or rather with the, not the preliminary, but you know what I mean. Let's just get started. So, starting with the brake temperatures up here, we are going to test each of those systems. Like that. Then we got the wheel well fire test, which is looking good. Then we got the engine turbine cooling air test, looking good. Nacelle pilot and overheat detection test is good. Then we can test the fire extinguishers, and that is all good. Alright, moving down here, let's go ahead and test the hydraulic systems. AC pumps are coming on, PTUs are coming on, and with that, all 4 systems are starting to pressurize. So we now know that these things are working, then we can turn them right back off again. Going down to the electrical panel, the galley power bus number 1 is on, APU generators are on, and the trip open lights should illuminate by default over here. That's a little bug in the airplane right now. Tire breakers are all on, that's all looking fantastic. Going down to the fuel system then, we are going to check that all those pumps are actually operating. That looks fantastic. Then we can switch them all but one off again. The same for the cross-feed valves, making sure that they work, which they do. So that's looking good. Refueling power is off. Fuel quantity test. And those gauges are all working. Fantastic. Okay, then we can move on to the side. The fuel jettison system is off. Fuel control amplifiers are latched. Well, no, guarded and unlatched. God, this latch phraseology from Lockheed is eventually gonna kill me at some point. Okay, so engine vibration tests, and these are quite a couple that we gotta do, but you will see that that actually goes pretty quick. Like that. Now system B. That's looking good. That's looking good. That's looking good. And that's looking good. Alright, and then we can go back to pickup selection A. APU is running and operating. We can set the mode selector and norm, by the way. Then down here we got the cargo fire detectors looking good. Short test is checked. Then the smoke detection system is actually not simulated. No click spots here. Humidity control is off. Okay, passenger oxygen is normal. Moving further up, we got the door entry lights. Then we can do the warning system tests. So that's all looking good. Up here everything is set. Then we're going down to the engine bleed controls, where we can turn the engine high pressure stages off. Isolation valves can either be on or off at this moment. APU isolation valve is on, cross bleed is on. Systems are on automatic and those are open. Down here everything's set. So area overheat starting on system A. We got 7 area overheat lights, which are looking good. Then at the front we got the wing anti-ice warning, and we got the area duct overheat warning down there, which is looking fantastic. Then we can do the same for system B, again looking for 7 lights, looking for 2 lights, and looking for 1 light. That's all looking good, and back to auto. Now let's go to the right hand side. Cargo heaters can remain on cold. Then we'll just have a look at the mid cabin over here. That's all looking good. Mode selector norm. We are going to cruise in flight level 370, so let's select that on the panel up here. 370. QNH is going to be somewhere around 1025-ish for today's departure. So let's select that. Then we test the outflow valves by moving them to manual and just closing those valves a little. And we can see that they are responding just fine. Perfect. So let's switch them back into automatic and they open up fully again. Okay, mode selector is set to norm, and that's it. Okay, with that we are done on the Flight Engineers panel. As you can see, it's not all that complex, is it? So let's now go back to the captain's seat and start doing a little bit of work over here. So, starting again on the overhead panel, we got the INS in align mode. The compass is to magnetic and set. HF radio is not simulated. Then we can do the general light test over here, which is looking fantastic. Alright, the master radio switches can both come on. Wiper is off. Cabin interphone is checked. Anti-ice off. Wing anti-ice off. Windshield heat and side windows are off, and air data sensors should be off at this point as well. Alright, going up to the middle, latch, tested, even though you'll see that the needle is actually not simulated right now. Alright, engine start selector on A and everything set. Now down here we got everything latched. Stall warning system, unfortunately not simulated at this time. The test. The stall warning itself does work, but the test is not simulated. Okay, and up here everything is set. Any skid test is unfortunately also not simulated, as you can see. And then we are moving down, and over here everything's set. Emergency exit lights on. Fasten seatbelt sign and no smoking sign are on, and that's the interior lights all set up. Okay then, let's move down to the main panel. Starting on the side, we do have the floodlights. I mean, don't really need those right now anymore. It's bright enough outside. Then we can start with the instrument comparator test, which compares the left and right hand instruments. If there is a malfunction, we would get a warning over here. Same for the autopilot disconnect system. Then we got the autopilot mode annunciators. Both of them are tested. Okay, QNH, we're looking at a field elevation of about 140, so if we just set a QNH appropriate for that, then we're good to go, like 1029 down here, and also down here. Okay, landing gear lever is down with the lights, and on the right hand side all that good stuff is working as well. Then we can move right down over here, alignment is in progress. So, a couple of frequencies. Let's get that airport chart. So, airport, parking stands, and here's the airport chart. So, starting up here, delivery 121.78. Like that, and then ground is going to be 121.605 later on. So let's pre-select that. We want to use VHF 1 and listen to that as well. Also want VHF 2, and we also want the interphone. Then the third radio does not really find any use today, so let's just tune 10345 like that, and maybe 1269 on this side. Okay, transponder 2000 standby, weather radar selected above and off, and then on the right hand side we got 121.5 like that, and the ATIS 123.78 like that. So right ACP is basically the same as the left ACP, and over here everything's set, trims are centered, and then we can move ahead and start preparing our plane for the flight. So let's start by inserting all those INS coordinates. For that we switch the INS's all remote control so that one entry enters everything, or rather an entry into one unit also enters it into the others, and then we can grab our flight plan over here. Now this is something that I would really hope for iniBuilds to do, that's to give us the ability to put the flight plan down here. Because here's a lot of space, and you do need all those coordinates, and I really don't want to be looking here, grab the coordinates of some waypoints, try to memorize them. I mean, it's not few numbers, try to memorize them, then look back down here to enter them. So I really think that they could give us the ability to put the flight plan here, and that would make it so much easier. Okay, so let's get started. What I'm doing for entering those waypoints is that I've actually got the flight plan on my iPad, my real-world iPad as well, and I'm actually editing it using the app Goodreader in order to insert those flight plan numbers, or insert the numbers for each waypoint that I'm assigning over here, down here in the free space, so that I know which waypoint equals which number. That's unfortunately something that I can't really show you properly on the sim, but I'm doing that on my real-world iPad as we go along. Okay, so first things first, Doden 1 Tango departure is planned. Let's go to charts, let's go to departure, Doden 1 Tango. And you can see that we can fly quite a bit of this conventionally. So we go straight at 4.5 dm Düsseldorf, left turn 171 until 21.5 Nürnberg, and then left 083 bearing in Mount Gamminghausen. And then that means that Elbal is the first waypoint, 16.9 dm in Mount Gamminghausen. Elbal is the first waypoint that we actually need from our flight plan down in the FMS. So let's go ahead and get started. We got Elbal over here. Now we put the selected waypoint, we select waypoint number 1, number 0 is always going to be your present position, so waypoint number 1, and we start entry. North coordinate, Elbal, 5109.4, and insert. Next up we need the east coordinate, which is 726.8, like that. And that makes Elbal waypoint number 1. then we got waypoint number 2, which is going to be Betzo. That's 50580. And the east coordinate for that, 7442. Alright, and now Betzo is number 2. Then we have Doden. And Doden is at 50361. And 008056. Insert. Then we got Tuzuk, which is at 50081. And the east coordinate for that is 8093. Then we have a DISA, which is 48593. And 8188. 6, of course, not 8. Alright, and then we continue from Ediza to number 6, which is going to be NATO 48102. And 8193. So with that, NATO is number 6. Then we continue towards Lutex, which is going to become number 7, and that's 47099. And 7222. And then Baynard 47035. And 7104. And then we got Nemos 46547. And 6544. Alright, and that's all 9 waypoints that we can enter now entered. The INS is limited to a maximum 9 waypoints. That means once we're passing waypoint number 9, it's automatically going to sequence from number 9 to number 1. So at some point through the flight, we need to enter the next couple of waypoints. What we can see over here, we got everything until Nemos in now. That's 39 minutes of flight time. So maybe it's 30 minutes into the flight, we are going to start entering the next couple of waypoints, so that we always have those waypoints populated. And that's everything you need to do. Now let's go ahead and return the selector to auto. And with that, we now have those waypoints in all of the INSs. Now, little bug at this point, they haven't actually simulated that yet with the remote controls, so if you do look in here, you'll find everything is empty. So we're only going to be able to use the left INS for this flight, unless you want to re-enter those waypoints everywhere, which I personally do not want to do. Alright, and that's it. So that's our flight plan entered in the INS. Now we just need our conventional navigation. So let's go right down here, and we are gonna fly straight ahead on the 230 radial from Düsseldorf to 4.5 DME. So let's select course 1230, and Düsseldorf is 1515. So 115.15. We also switch the DME on. We should also test it, but that's not simulated right now. You can see when I put it into the test position, nothing happens. So we'll just switch it on and on. Okay, so at 4.5, left turn 171 till 21.5 Nürnberg, which is 16.2. And that's selected. Now, let's go ahead and set the heading back to our initial heading, 230. And then I'm going to tune 171 as a backup on course number 2. Like that. Okay, and the initial climb clearance is to 5,000 feet. Like that. Alright, perfect. And with that, we are completely done with our setup. So now we just need to wait for boarding to finish, for the INSs to finish the alignment process, which should be pretty much done. Now, when the INS alignment is complete, you will see the green ready light illuminate, And I'm going to wait until that is the case for all three. Okay, here's number 2 ready. Number 3 should be ready any moment as well now. Yeah, it's showing 3. Once it's at 2, the ready light is going to come on, and then we are done. Okay, so with that we have finished our setup. Now, one thing that I would recommend you to do, if you have that flight plan on an iPad or something physical where you can write into it, you can also do things like write down your ATIS or your departure clearance, which is what I'm going to do on my physical iPad. Now, it would be really nice if iniBuilds could give us the ability to do that right down in the flight plan over here as well, so that we're able to actually fill this out, because obviously with an analog aircraft like the TriStar, you would be working a lot with your paper flight plan. So I hope that iniBuilds is going to be able to do that with a future update. Alright, but for now, that's everything done, so let's go ahead and start collecting the departure ATIS so that we can get ready for our flight today. So, little bug that you see there, in order to be able to actually hear something from VHF2, you need to select the transmitter to it. That's a bug, should work with that one down there as well.
Transition level 60. Curfew restrictions in effect. Expect delays during late hours. Advise on course heading, altitude, and the flight following is requested. Read vet all runway and hold short instructions. Advise on initial contact. You have information Sierra.
Okay, so that's ATIS Sierra.
Information Sierra. 0950 Zulu. Arriving runways 23 left, 23 right. Departing runway 23 left. Wind 290 at 5. Visibility 10. Scattered at 2800. Scattered at 3900. Temperature 9er. Dew point -1. QNH 1029er. Transition level 60. Curfew restrictions in effect. Expect delays during late hours. Advise on...
Okay, great. So the ATIS is on board, information Sierra. Then let's go ahead and also get the IFR clearance. Düsseldorf delivery, LTU 184 Heavy, information Sierra. Request IFR clearance to Palma de Mallorca.
I'll have your clearance in just a second. Via the DOH-10-1 Tango departure runway 23 left. Initial climb to flight level 050. Departure on 128.655 squawk 1327.
LTU 184 Heavy is clear to Palma, Doden 1 Tango departure, runway 23 left, climb 5000, departure 128.655 squawk 1327. 5000, 1327. And 128.655. I'm gonna put that down here as a reminder. LTU 184 is clear to Palma, Doden, Montango, runway 23 left, climb 5000, departure 128.655, squawk 1327. Of course, when you transmit a VHF2, that's not gonna work, so let's do it that way.
LTU 184, Düsseldorf clearance, readback correct. Contact ground on 121.605.
121.605, LTU 184. Okay, that's active. Then we can pre-select tower down here, 18305, like this. And with that, our clearance is checked and everything is as we've planned. Alright, finally, let's activate...
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard LTU International Flight 184, heading to Palma de Mallorca.
Oh, why can't I go into the track change mode? Okay, interesting.
Please take your seats according to your boarding passes and stow your
That should be
hand luggage
working.
in overhead bins or under the seats in front of you. If you need any assistance, don't hesitate to reach out to any member of our crew.
Okay.
Thank
Oh,
you.
I think I know why.
International
Because we haven't put
flight.
the INS in a nav mode yet. 1, 2, 3, here we go. Ready light goes out. With that, our INS is ready, and now going in track change. Waypoint 0 to waypoint 1. Insert. And with that, you can see we now get our distance showing up there and up there as well. Now, I'm not 100% sure if it's a bug, but I do believe that when the radio INS switch up there is on radio mode, we should see the DME from our DME down here, up here, instead of the INS calculation. So, fairly sure that that's a bug, but not 100%. Okay, so I think we've done everything. Let's see how far GSX is. And it looks like they have actually finished the boarding. That's good. So then let's go ahead and take a couple notes from our load sheet. We got 25 tons of fuel on board. Passengers weight 19.1. Our baggage 6.0, fuel 25.0, and that's a takeoff weight of 161.5. Okay. And the fuel for that is 25.0. I'm also writing all of that stuff down in my flight plan, down here, so that we have it for the fuel checks and everything we need to do en route later on. Okay, so all that stuff is down there, and the takeoff weight is 161.5, as mentioned. And that's all written down. Now we can go ahead into the takeoff performance. Takeoff weight is going to be 161.5, enter. Pressure altitude for our departure is roughly 140 feet, and the outside temperature, according to the ATIS, is 9 degrees. Flaps 14. Then let's calculate, and that's all our takeoff data. Let's quickly go over what we have here. That's our takeoff EPR, so 1.643. Climb EPR, 1.582, then our takeoff speed, 34, 34, 37, flaps 14, 4.06 units trim, and that's our minimum maneuvering speeds. Let's talk about those real quick. So we're going to maintain V2 plus 10 until we reach 1000 AGL. Then we start accelerating, and we can retract the flaps to 10, right when we're above this. We can retract the flaps from 10 to 4 at this. Flaps 4 to up at this, and this is our minimum clean speed. So let's press the set box in EPR and have a look at what that's doing on our panel. That's V1 and VR. That down here is V2. We're going to fly V2 plus 10. We'll start accelerating, flaps 10, passing this buck, flaps 4, and passing this one, flaps up. And this is our minimum clean speed. And that's what we have here. Then 643. The takeoff EPR, reminder set over here. And what I personally like to do, I'm also going to set myself a climb reminder, 582, and that's going to go just in the middle over here, 582. Now you also have the takeoff data card down here, very handy for the first officer. Unfortunately, from the captain's seat during takeoff, in the simulator not as easily visible. In the real world, of course, a simple glance over to the side gives you that same data. And if you're flying from the FO seat, very handy to have it right in front of you. Okay, so that much about our speed box and all that setup. And with that, I think we are good to go. So let's close that flight deck door. It's just a very tiny flight deck, so I'm going to close that one up. And then we can go right down here and set that gross weight reminder. This might take a little while right now, because you got the little knob and you can see you're switching this in steps at once. I do hope that iniBuilds is eventually going to give us a little bit of an accelerator function over there. But this is quite the important thing, because we will use it for our gross weight for landing later on, and to get our gross weight for the maximum flight level calculations at any given time. So I actually have to set this up. So yeah, this is just gonna take a little while. In the meantime, let's go over the fuel gauges down there. So left one is 5.1 tons, then we got the second from the left, 7.2. On the right side, 7.2 and 5.1, so the fuel is evenly loaded. And adding all of that up, we get 24.8, while we requested 25 tons, so that's good enough. That's gonna do the job. So 161.5 is our total gross weight, that's set up there. And in flight, as fuel is burned, that's going to go down automatically so that we know our gross weight at any given time. Alright, lovely. so with that, we have pretty much set everything up over here the way we should have. Now, since I've just turned that knob so much, my view controls are a little problematic right now. That's just a simulator bug over here. Alright, here we go. Now I can look around again. Lovely simulator bug. I really hope Asobo is eventually gonna fix that. Alright, so that much about the basics. Let's do the oxygen test. Forgot that earlier. So, supply on. Emergency selected. Test. Looks good. And here we go. Alright, so the mask is completely set up. Then let's do the before start. Well, the functional and the before start checklists. So, flight director checked and on. Instrument comparator checked. AFCS warning and mode annunciators checked. Radios checked. Radar checked. GPWS checked. Functionals complete. Before start checklist. Oxygen mask and interphone checked. MSU, that's the term to refer to the IRSs here. So, MSU aligned, compass, magnetic and synced, overhead panel checked, anti-skid checked and off, emergency lights and standby power on, cabin signs on, AFCS panel checked, flight instruments checked, annunciators checked, engine instruments checked, brake system normal, radios and radar set, INS checked and set, throttle quadrant checked, landing gear lever down and 3 green, trims 0. Now we're moving to the flight engineers panel. So fuel 24,800 kilograms, oxygen mask and interphone checked, fire and overheat protection checked, electrical panel checked, battery switch on, fuel panels checked, pressurization is set, flight level 370 and normal, and logbook checked, and that's the before start checklist complete. Okay, lovely. So that good stuff is done. Then we do have APU power, so let's disconnect that external power, please. Back to the front, ground, GPU remove, doors close, and prepare position for pushback and departure, please. Park and brake is set. Liebe Fluggäste, einen wunderschönen guten Morgen aus dem Cockpit. Hier spricht Ihr Kapitän. Mein Name ist Emanuel und im Namen der LTU darf ich Sie ganz herzlich an Bord unserer TriStar willkommen heißen auf unserem gemeinsamen Flug nach Palma de Mallorca. Die Flugzeit heute ca. 2 Stunden und 10 Minuten. Wir erwarten einen weitestgehend ruhigen Flug mit einer pünktlichen Ankunft. Wir bedanken uns jetzt ganz herzlich, dass Sie heute unsere Gäste sind. Lehnen Sie sich zurück, genießen den Flug mit uns und wir melden uns dann im Anflug mit den neuesten Wetterdaten bei Ihnen. Vielen Dank für Ihre Aufmerksamkeit und noch einmal herzlich willkommen bei uns an Bord. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning from flight deck. This is your captain speaking. My name is Emanuel, and in the name of LTU, welcome aboard our L-1011 TriStar on our flight to Palma de Mallorca. Today's flight time will be 2 hours and 10 minutes, expecting a smooth flight in 11,300 meters altitude. We're expecting a smooth ride over with an on-time arrival, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the flight with us. And if there's anything we can do for you to make it more enjoyable, please do not hesitate to ask any of our charming cabin crew members. Ground from flight deck. Please confirm that all doors and hatches are closed, ground equipment is removed, and the bypass pin is installed. That's all confirmed. Roger that, we'll get clearance for pushback, thank you. So let's also press the toga button down here. Nicely hidden, isn't it? And here we go, that's toga mode selected. Alright. Then I'd say we are pretty much good to go up here, so that procedure is complete, so we can just go right into requesting pushback. Düsseldorf ground, LTU 184, heavy request pushback and startup.
LTU 184, pushback and startup approved, face northwest.
Pushback and startup approved, facing northwest, LTU 184. Okay. So a couple quick checks over here. Most importantly, that's all set. Hydraulic panel pumps are off. Galley power is going off. APU power is on. We have one fuel pump with the cross feeds. We're gonna minimize the AC usage over here because the APU is rather weak on the TriStar. And that's effectively what we're doing here. Okay, so min mode is selected and the bleed is open and we do have pressure. Okay, before start, checklist please. So, MSU, nav, anti-collision light on, parking brake on, electrical panel set, fuel panel and gross weight checked and set, APU min mode and pack flow. That's just one pack on. Alright, start checklist complete. Ground from cockpit. Pushback and startup are approved, facing northwest, and the parking brake is set. So now the question. Here's the problem. Right, now the door is closed, now GSX should actually get ready.
Eurowing 7 November Tango,
Yeah.
contact tower.
Attaching the truck right now, the chocks are already removed. That looks quite good.
Eurowing 7 November Tango.
Alright, looks like they do have a lifter right now. So please do let me know when we can release the brakes. And here we go, facing northeast. I think they said northwest, but we don't have that option. Alright, parking brake is released, you're clear to start the pushback, and we'll be starting engines 2, 1 and 3 in that sequence. Alright, here we go. Our first movement on the TriStar. Now the off-block time is 53:06:53, and again we would write that down in our flight plan as well.
1 hour and 55 minutes. Please pay close attention to the upcoming safety demonstration, as it contains important information even for
So we'll
frequent
commence
flyers.
engine 3 start.
Fasten your seatbelts by inserting the metal tip into the buckle and pulling the strap to tighten.
And 3,
The seatbelt must be fastened
1.
whenever the seatbelt sign is illuminated. Please return your seatbacks and tray tables to the upright position
and the
open
engine is
window
cooling
once you
down
take
again.
off.
Why?
Mobile phones and electronic devices must be set to flight mode, and larger
Okay,
devices
that's
must
gotta be
securely stowed
misconfiguration.
during takeoff and landing.
Do we need to turn the
Smoking
isolation
and
valves and the high pressure
smoking
valves
signals are
on?
prohibited anywhere on
I
board,
don't think we
including the
need to,
lavatories.
but let's try that
Oxygen
again.
masks will drop automatically if needed. Pull the mask firmly, place it over your nose and mouth, and breathe normally. Secure your own mask before assisting
Yeah,
others.
now it's working. Okay,
Life
then we need to
vests
turn
are
them on.
located under your seat.
That's fine.
Put it on, fasten it, and
So,
inflate it
N3
only after
and
leaving the
1.
aircraft. Floor level lighting will guide you to the nearest exit, which is clearly marked. We have 2 exits in the front and 2 in
And
the rear.
here's 20%.
The nearest exit may be behind you. In case of evacuation, leave all personal belongings behind and follow crew instructions immediately. If any electronic device becomes hot or catches fire,
30% N3 and 1 is rotating.
the safety information card in your seat.
Remember, you have no FADEC here. If something goes wrong, you gotta recognize it and you gotta abort the engine start. Which you can do with the ground start release switch up there, by the way. Okay, start a cutout. Monitor 2 starting 1. And the pushback is completed. Set parking brake. Parking brake set. N3 and 1. %. Fuel on. And that is looking fantastic. So we've got a good start 1, starting 3. Clear 3. And 3. And 1. Okay, there's the lifter. There is 20%. Fuel is coming on. Okay, ground, we got 3 good starts. You're clear to disconnect. Show me the pin on the right, please, and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye. So, there she is, and she's got a pin. Lovely. Alright. So, engine start is set to both. And I think that's all we gotta do up front over here.
Flaps 14.
So trim 4.06. Like that. And then we can move to the engineer and do a bit more stuff over here. So generators are coming online. Galley power is coming online. ATM's auto. And hydraulic pressure is checked and there. Fuel pumps are all on. Thrust feed's going off. And then APU bleed air off and APU stop. So APU is shutting down. Then up here we got everything on, everything checked, everything good. Ground controller can go off, and that's it, I think. Alright, let's run the checklist and see what we have forgotten. So, after start checklist, engine anti-ice
Bravo Alpha ready to taxi.
is off. Here we go.
Eurowings 9 or Bravo Alpha, runway
See, I did
23
forget
left
something.
taxi via Papa 2, Tango,
So,
Papa 1, Mike
Pido
Lima
Alpha
2.
and windshield heat on, start ignition both.
Runway 23 left
Annunciators
taxi via Papa 2,
checked.
Tango,
Now
Papa
over
1,
to the
Mike
engineers
Lima 2,
panel.
Eurowings 9
Hydraulic
Bravo
panel checked. Electrical panel checked. Fuel panel checked. What's that down there? APU, okay, that's fine. And the APU is shut down. Okay, APU. No. Fuel panel checked. Fuel control amplifiers are latched and unlatched. And APU shutdown annunciators checked after start checklist complete. LTU 184 Heavy, request taxi.
LQ 184, runway 23 left taxi via Tango, Papa 4, Mike Lima 2.
Tango, Papa 4, Mike Lima 2, runway 23 left, LTU 184. Okay, well, Papa 4 is behind us, so we'll do Tango, Papa 3, Mike Lima 2. That sounds good to me. So, taxi light on, turn off lights on, brake off, and here we go. Looks like we are moving on idle. There is a little note in the real-world flight manual that you may need up to 70% N3, note N3 down here, to get the aircraft to move initially. Now, something that you will absolutely have to get used to is, first of all, you don't have a ground speed indication up there. And since you're sitting so far in front of the wheels, you will notice that a huge oversteering is actually needed for the 1011. Right, and then off to the other end side. So look at this. That's a huge bit of oversteering, isn't it? Again, you are sitting like several meters in front of the nose wheel, and the main wheels are very far aft due to the heavy tail of the plane as well. So that's a huge oversteering required in the flight deck. We'll get back to that later on when we are doing the lineup on the runway. In the meantime, if you do want to know your ground speed, you're going to get that from the INS. So you can just move this to track and ground speed. Down here you have it. But you wouldn't taxi the airplane with main reference to this. You would taxi it with main reference outside the window. That's the thing with those older aircraft. You're still expected to know your airplane as pilot. Now obviously with modern aircraft as well, but it does get easier when you got your ground speed read up right in front of you, especially when sitting so high on as you are in wide bodies. Alright, so let's go over the takeoff briefing. It's going to be a left seat takeoff, runway 23 left, flaps 14, Takeoff speeds 34, 34, and what's the last one? 47. The SID is straight at 4.5 DME Düsseldorf. Then it's going to be a left-hand turn heading 171 until 21.5 DME Nürnberg, which is active in DME number 2. And then we'll make a left turn, intercept the bearing 083 inbound Germinghausen. And once we're established on that bearing, we can switch over to INS navigation. Okay, what else do we have? Yeah, let's talk about noise abatement procedures. So we'll maintain V2 plus 10, so basically 160 knots until 1000 AGL, which is 1150 on the altimeter. Reaching that, we are going to reduce thrust to climb thrust and then start the acceleration, and we will maintain 220 knots until we are above 3,000 feet, then hopefully get further climb clearance, otherwise accelerate to 50 at that point already, and then level off in 5,000. We are very light. Remember, this is a long-haul aircraft, and even though we got a full passenger load, we are only at a very low gross weight for an L-1011, so we are going to climb very fast, so we are going to anticipate that. I will do a little bit of manual flight because I want to get the feeling for that airplane, which is going to be important, especially later on when we start the approach and landing. Alright, and I think that's pretty much it. Do you have any questions or suggestions? No. Lovely. Then let's go ahead and do the B4 takeoff checklist. So, brake system checked, continuous ignition off, flaps slats 1414, stabilizer trim 4.1 units, flight controls. See, we forgot something. So that's full up, full down, neutral, full left, full right, neutral, rudder, left, right, neutral, and the speed brakes checked. Okay, so flight controls checked, takeoff data. Nope, forgot something. So first of all, it's gonna be flight controls checked, flight and nav instruments set for departure, takeoff data checked and set, briefings complete, ATMs are checked on auto, APU off, cabin crew alerted, before takeoff checklist complete down to runway entry. So we are going a little bit uphill over here. Looks like we do need a bit of thrust. Again, remember, N3 not above 70%. So this is the maximum we can do, about 31% N1 under these conditions.
L-1011, contact tower on 118.305, bye-bye.
118.305, LTU-184, see ya. And departure 128.655. Düsseldorf Tower, LTU-184 Heavy, ready for departure.
LTU-184 Heavy, Düsseldorf Tower, moin. Runway 23 left, hold short, you're number 1 behind the A319.
Holding short 23 left, LTU-184. Okay, park and brake set. Little difference in size between the two aircraft. Just a little difference. So the 319 is departing. Alright, so let's get our departure chart up here. Here we go. We could tune Delta Yankee 284.5, not that we really need it, but doesn't cost us anything to tune it. And then let's do it on both sides. Here we go. That makes it a little bit easier after takeoff, should we receive the NDBs, but just not guaranteed. Microsoft Flight Simulator and NDBs do not go very well among one another. But if we should receive them...
LT-184 heavy, runway 23 left, winds 210 at 5, cleared for takeoff.
Runway 23 left, clear for takeoff, LTU-184 heavy. Cabin crew, prepare for departure. Okay, before takeoff checklist below the line. Landing lights and strobes. On. Anti-skid. On. Alpha. Heat off lights out. Transponder. On. And pack flow. 1 on. Okay, before takeoff checklist complete. So the approach area is clear. The left side is clear. Weather radar is on and operating. And now let's have a look at the lineup. As mentioned, we are really far in front of the wheels, so let's start that turn right now. Our nose wheel is approximately on the center line right now. So look at that, we're almost steering it over the runway edge here. Okay, and here we go. So I'm going to stay in the brakes here. Let's start getting that takeoff thrust set. So stabilize at 60 to 70% N1. That is stabilized. Now we're looking for 643 on the EPR. I'm just doing it this way because it's a little bit easier. And the real-world flight engineer would do that for you. Here we go. 643, brake release at 09, takeoff. 80 knots, checked. Gear up. So V2 plus 10. Passing 1000 AGL. Thrust to an EPR of 582. Flaps 10. Speed checked. Flaps 4. Speed checked.
184, contact departure on 128.655.
128.655, LTU 184. Long radar LTU 64, correction 184, passing 2100, climbing 5000. So flap 0.
LTU 184 heavy, Dusseldorf departure identified. Climb via the SID to flight level 250.
Climb by SID, flight level 250, LTU 184. Set, 250 checked. Alright, then we're through 3000, so let's accelerate towards 250. And here we go, that's 250 knots.
L2184, contact Langen radar on 128.505.
128.505, LTU 184. Alright, reaching 4.5 miles, turn left heading 171. Then we can tune Gamminghausen 15.4 and the 083 course. Okay, speed is checked, correcting. We'll do the altimeters a little later, it's just that I have to fly the plane right now. So here's heading 171 until 21.5 DME, so that's another 0.3 miles. Here we go, 21.5, left turn to intercept the radial. Okay, passing level 100. Let's accelerate 320 knots.
Dear guests, we are now at a safe altitude, and the use of approved electronic devices is permitted in flight mode. Cabin service will begin shortly. Thank you for your attention and enjoy your flight with LTU International. Dear guests, the cabin crew will now begin the snack and beverage service. We have some delightful options from our menu, including our popular sandwiches and
So, going right into the sun.
After the service, selected items from the LTU International shop will be available for you to browse. Thank you for your attention and enjoy your flight.
Alright. I think we're doing quite good now. Let's actually go ahead and turn on the auto thrust to maximum EPR. You're not looking for 0. What are you doing? Okay, then we're going to do the thrust ourselves initially. Then we can just align that thing on the heading book. Track the VOR. Okay, speed hold. And autopilot on. Now let's see if we can get this thing to maintain any thrust setting for us. Nope, EPR 0. Okay. Well, then we are going to set our thrust manually at first. Okay, now, set standard. Here we go, standard cross-check, passing flight level 132 now. And going through level 100, we can switch those lights off, switch the seatbelt sign off, and just a quick check over at the engineer station over here. Now there's a bug for you. Cabin is not pressurizing, and is definitely not misconfigured. So, little bug there. It will start pressurizing eventually when you run it into the differential pressure limit. But yeah, that's not how it's supposed to go. Also, we do have more fuel in the number 2 tanks than in the number 1 and 3. So let's turn off the pumps for 1 and 3 until the fuel in here equals the fuel in here. Now, basically that plus that has to be the same as this or this. We're looking at 4.8, so, well, basically we're going to bring it down to 3.4 before we turn the center pumps on again.
L-1011, contact Lincoln radar.
Why the fucking thing descending?
65.
Come on, you start a climb, please. Say again?
L-1011, contact Lincoln radar on 135.65.
13565, LT-184. Long radar, LT-184 heavy, flight level 137, climbing flight level 250.
L-1011, Langen radar, climb flight level 250.
Climbing level 250, LT-184. Okay, so now, let's update the INS here. So, from waypoint 0 to waypoint 1, insert. Switch this over to INS navigation, and INS nav mode is on. Alright, and with that we now have proper navigation. Now the question, why do we not have any target EPR? Oh, I guess I don't need to know. You mean I have a theory. It's probably because I can't enter anything down here. Like, you can see if I go to gross weight, it doesn't provide me the field to enter this like it should, and unfortunately there is nothing in the iniBuilds manual to tell me how to, you know, actually fill this out. I just have their trailer video, and in there they just click on here, then it opens up, and I should be able to enter something. And it looks like it's actually taken because the insert button is working, but yeah, not sure what's going on there, why this is not doing anything for me. But yeah, look at this. It even tells me the EPR it should go to. Huh, and now it's doing it. Interesting. I guess that falls under the I don't have to understand this category. But okay, target EPR is set, 0.69. ES hold mode is engaged. It's navigating on the INS and is now following the route. So I think we've pretty much got it now. So it's just flying over the first waypoint, and you can see it's now sequenced from waypoint 01 to fly from waypoint 1 to waypoint 2. That way we just have to have a look at the waypoint down here and update them as we fly along. And yeah, that's pretty much everything that I got for the time being. So let's just finish up the after takeoff checklist, which we hadn't had the chance to read yet. So that's landing gear up in neutral, flaps and sluts up and retracted, continuous ignition off, landing lights off, cabin signs, yeah, let's put the no smoking sign off as well. It's good old 90s after all. So cabin signs off, temperature and probe heat on, hydraulic panel checked, fuel panel checked, ECS panel checked, and after takeoff checklist complete. Alright my friends, and with that we're up and on the way. So I see you all when we start the approach down into Palma de Mallorca. Alright everyone, we are about to start the setup for the approach into Palma de Mallorca. Now, let's go ahead and go over how to plan the descent for an airplane like this. Obviously you could just do it the easy way and use the top of descent calculator that you have provided in the EFB, but we are going to do things a little more complex than that. So if you're looking for the automatic calculator, just go down here to the flight engineer and the helper, and over there you get what you are looking for. But things are going to be a little bit different for our approach. So we are going to do this the way you would in the real world. So let's first of all start by having a look into the arrival that we are going to fly. We'll plan on the Lune for Mike arrival for an ILS approach from runway 06 left. The approach takes us from Lunek down to Cap de Pera and then to Mallorca VORs, and from there we are going to start the standard ILS approach into runway 06 left, which we can quickly find and pin over here as well. So let's start by calculating the end of descent waypoint, and from there we are going to do things backwards. So over here at 8 DME Mike Juliet Victor, we definitely want to be down at platform altitude. We got Nagpur in 2300, so let's be in 2300 over there. To ease things up, let's calculate for 2000 to give ourselves a little bit of margin. So from 2000 we got to get all the way up to 37,000. That means we got to cover 35,000 feet vertically. Now take those 35, multiply with 3, and you get 105 miles that you need for the descent. Now, if you want to make things a little bit more complex, you can add another 10 to reduce your airspeed. So let's take 115 miles. Now, at this point, let's take a piece of paper and start writing down a descent schedule. So we need 115 miles. We start 8 miles outbound from Mike Juliet Victor. That means we already have approximately 115 minus 8. So that gets you to 107. In other words, if this is supposed to be 2,000 feet, then averaging 2,500 feet descent, well, 3,000 over 9 miles, so we are going to do 2,500 to do it easy. 2,000 here, so 5,500 over Mike Juliet Victor. Alright, then we have 35 miles from Mike Juliet Victor to Charlie Delta Papa. And we've just gotten our descent here.
Mike to flight level 100 into Palma, QNH 1017, L-2184.
So 10,000 vertical speed and minus 1,000 feet a minute, down we go. Okay, so while we're descending, we'll just keep going over here. So we have Mike Juliet Victor and 5,500.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Next we have Cap de Pera,
left our cruising altitude,
which is
started
35
our
miles
approach to
from
Please
Mike
return
Juliet
to your
Victor.
seats.
So 35 miles means we lose about 10,000 feet.
The use of
So
lavatories
let's
is
calculate
allowed. Thank you.
15.5 plus a little bit for the extra 5. So let's calculate plus 17. So we end up in, let's say, 22,000 over Charlie Delta Papa. Now from there, let's return to the star chart. So 22,000 over Charlie Delta Papa, and then going outbound. We got the slew point, 20 miles inbound. 20 miles divided by 3, you end up at roughly 7. Let's do 6.5. So that's going to be 28,500 at the slew point. And then from there we can go backwards and basically calculate everything backwards. So we have 5 plus basically another 25 miles, so 7,000 on top. So 35,000 roughly over Lunik. And that way we now have a descent schedule. Now let's have a look into the INS. We're inbound to waypoint number 3, and number 3 is Lunik. So after that, or rather at that, we should have 35,000. We are descending already because ATC wants us to, so we can just keep going down here at 1,000 feet a minute, and that's basically it. Now from here on, we gotta prepare the arrival. So we'll fly from Lunik to Charlie Delta Papa, which is on 12.9. So let's go ahead and tune that, as we will be flying the arrival raw data. So 12.9 is set, and that's going to be on the radial 356 inbound, which is 176 degrees. So course 1, 176. Thereafter, we are going to fly on course 242 to Mike Juliet Victor, which is going to be on 13.3. So let's already pre-select that, and that's going to be 242 degrees. Like this. Okay, and that's pretty much everything we can do for the star preparation for now. Next up, we have our ILS minimums. Category Charlie aircraft 294. So let's go ahead and select that. So here we go, that's 294 for our minimum, and then finally let's go ahead and set up for the approach. So for that we got to go to the engineers panel, 151.1. We are still burning a bit of fuel, so let's calculate 150 for our landing weight. Also, let's quickly select the cabin down to field elevation so that the cabin starts descending. Here we go, cabin is coming down now. Okay, so 150 tons is going to be our landing weight. So let's go. Landing performance, landing weight 150. The landing elevation is 0 feet. The runway is dry, any skid on, calculate and set those figures. 148 on the approach speed, landing distance 1943 meters. That's about as easy as it gets. Alright, we're overflying Lunik, so let's change to heading mode initially, switch over to radio, and here we go. There's our VOR coming up. So here we go, VOR mode is active, now tracking inbound to Capdepera, which is 44 nautical miles away. Alright, and that way we have pretty much set everything up. So the signs are coming on, and then we can now do a little bit of mathematics there. We calculated that we want to pass Capdepera in 22,000, 40 miles to run. We are flying at a ground speed of 530 knots, so that's 9 miles a minute, so we need roughly 3 minutes to Capdepera. Well, yeah, 3 minutes, and we want to lose 10,000, so that means a vertical speed of approximately 3,000 feet a minute right now. And here we go. So now we are descending along our schedule. We have set our speed box up, we have set our landing data up, we've set our cabin up, or rather our pressurization schedule. The seatbelt signs are on, and that's pretty much everything we can do for the time being. So with all of that out of the way, we can go ahead and read the descent checklist, please. Which is flight instruments checked, landing data checked and set, annunciators are checked, briefing is pretty much complete. I talked you through it just now. Circuit breakers checked, ECS panel checked, descent checklist complete. Alright, and now we are just descending along the arrival, and then I suppose I see you all a bit later when we start the actual approach. Alright, we've just received clearance down to 4,000 on QNH 1017. So that is set and cross-checked, and we are descending along the arrival. 16.6 miles inbound to Mike Juliet Victor, so we are rather good on profile. Just gotta ensure that we actually are able to lose that airspeed, but that's why we set ourselves quite a bit of margin over there. Now, for the approach, we've basically set everything up. ATC told us to expect the standard arrival out of Mike Juliet Victor, so that's gonna be that number 2 down there for the standard arrival, and that's on a track of 261 outbound. So let's pre-select that on course number 2, so that we've got a reminder available. Here we go. Okay, we're approaching 100. Let's go ahead and start slowing down. So lights 1, 2, 3 are on, signs are on, and the cabin altitude is already down. Okay. So far so easy.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Approaching 250 knots, and
please turn off your electronic devices and stow them until we arrive at the gate.
here we go, down at 250, speed hold, and it's rather cold outside, 3 degrees, engine anti-ice on.
The weather in Palma is currently 13 degrees Celsius with a few clouds at 2,200 feet. Our assigned gate is apron R.
Okay.
Thank you.
184 heavy.
Thank you.
Descend altitude 2300 feet cleared for the ILS runway 06 left approach via Mallorca.
So 2300 is checked. By the way, I just love that accent. Via Mallorca.
ILS 06 left approach via MJB. L-1011.
Alright, so VREF 143, that means 148 will be our approach speed here. As we are nearing the station, let's switch over to heading mode. And then we can pre-select 261. Here we go. Okay, so ILS frequency 110.9. Let's already tune that on the right hand side. Here we go. Okay, we're wanting to be in 5,500 over the station, and it looks pretty much like we will be. Exactly. Nice. So our VNAV worked out, even though I did a little error in my calculations earlier, but you've already seen me correct that on the further descent, so that's quite alright. Alright, cool. So we're approaching the station. Let's turn right, 261. Here we go, exactly over at the station. We had the 5,000, that looked good. So now it's outbound to 8 miles, and once we got the 8 miles, we will start slowing her down to the final approach speed. Well, at least to something decent, like 180 or so. So we are pretty much exactly over the station, therefore I'm only going to do very small corrections on the heading here to re-intercept the radial. Flying this until 8 DNE now. Okay, approach checklist. Fasten seatbelts on, exterior lights on, altimeters, QNH 1017. And sleds flaps to go, radios nav sets, no smoking on, and fuel panel is set and checked. Approach checklist complete. Alright, vertical speed minus 1,000. So the radial is slowly coming in. We can slowly start slowing down as well. Shouldn't have more than 220 when turning onto our base. Okay, Alt capture. Alright, we are far enough away from the station via our capture. Then we can pre-select the final heading, which is going to be 030 to intercept the ILS. Like this. Alright, speed is coming down. I will be using a little bit of manual thrust here, because I've just pre-selected my auto thrust to the final approach speed already. Okay, so turning at 8 miles, and here's 7.98 heading. So 110.9 is the ILS frequency. And the final approach course 057. Like that. Okay, flaps 4.
Flaps 4.
Now look at how the autopilot has some trouble maintaining altitude here. That is a bug in the TriStar at the moment, which I hope they're going to fix soon. Okay, ILS armed. And then I'd say we're just gonna go ahead and have some fun. Flaps 10 and manual flight. So maintain that altitude, please.
LTU-184, contact Palma Tower on 122.1.
Contacting Palma Tower on 122.1. LTU-184.
Man, we've definitely seen better weather in Palma.
Palma Tower, L2184. Good morning.
Yep, very
Establish
reactive
on ILS
aircraft.
Runway 06 left approach.
Okay, flaps 14.
Flaps 14.
LTU-184 heavy. Palma Tower, Roger. Continue approach.
Roger. So 148 final approach speed. Localizer should come in any moment. Well, I can see the runway over there. Let's actually correct it a little bit
LTU-184
further.
heavy, wind 040 at 18 gusting 28.
Flight director's
Runway 6
off.
left, clear to land.
So we are visual with the terrain. I'm intercepting the glider already.
Runway 6 left, clear to land. L2184 heavy.
So, gear down.
Gear down.
And flaps 33. Localizer alive. Alright, we were clear to land, so those are coming on. Taxi and turn off lights. And then we can do that landing checklist, please. So, QNH 1017 set. Landing gear down. Continuous ignition on. Will you please keep descending? So, continuous ignition on, cabin crew alerted, hydraulic panel checked, assist brakes and any skid are normal and on. Okay, flaps 33 degrees and DLC is checked, landing checklist complete. So, DLC stands for Direct Lift Control, and it is a system that Lockheed has implemented on the TriStar in order to minimize the vertical movement, or in order to minimize the pitching of the airplane on final. What DLC is doing is that when you are pulling the yoke, or pushing the yoke, namely when you are doing what would normally be done with the pitch controls, in the TriStar is partially done with the spoilers. So instead of pitching too much on final, the airplane is simply going to deploy partial spoilers in order to help with the descent rate on the final. Alright then, let's now focus on actually landing that airplane, because it's pretty windy and gusty over here. We are following the puppy, by the way, not the glide slope, because in weather like this it's very easy just to overcomplicate things. Alright, so flare, rudder and touchdown. Okay, spoilers, reverse.
LTU-184.
70 knots.
Contact ground on 121.705.
Alright, on the ground at 57.
Switching to ground on 121.705. LTU-184.
Palmer ground, LTU-184 heavy, request taxi to gate 56.
Palma ground.
LTU-184. Taxi to Pier C gate 56. Via November 3 North, Link, Golf, Lima Juliet. Good day.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Gate 56 via Golf and Juliet. LTU-184.
Lasso, thank you for flying with LTU International. Please remain
Okay.
safe until final parking position. On behalf of your flight crew.
So, runway is
thank you for
located.
flying
Let's
with
start
LTU
cleaning her up.
The local time is 8:57 in the morning. For those
And that's all that stuff. Engine anti-ice could already have been off, but okay, whatever. Alright, then we are gonna turn right on to north. So flaps up, please.
Flap 0.
Transponder, radar, and here we go. Alright, over to the engineers panel.
173 ready to taxi.
APU master on, APU starter on,
Runway 6 right taxi.
and here we go. And then we can already switch one pump per tank off. And that's it for now. Cabin pressurization is good, alpha valves are open. Alright, after landing checklist. Anti-ice, off windshield heat. Is off, air data sensor heat off, continuous ignition off, anti-skid off, landing lights and strobes are off. Speed brake lever forwards, flaps and slats up and retracted, trim. So here's golf. Trim 0. Radar and transponder standby, electrical panel is checked, fuel panel set, ECS panel is also checked, APU on, brake system checked, after landing checklist complete. So we're looking for gate 56. No follow me needed, handling by Acciona. And that's it. So here is 54, 56 is up next. Weather radar is off indeed, taxi lights off. And here's 56. At a slight angle. And here we are. Looks like the guidance system is broken, then we'll just taxi in ourselves. Okay, and a little bit further forward. Again, long airplane. Yeah, this should be fine. Okay, park and brake is set. So now there's quite a bit of work for us to do here before we can shut her down. So let's go over to the engineers panel. We need APU power, and we need that thing on. APU itself is confirmed running. APU bleeders coming on, packs 2 and 3 going off, and we can already turn the engines off down there. Okay, so the air conditioning panel is set. We do have the APU generator online. Alright, Captain, ready to shut down. So, 1, 2, and 3. And here we go. Alrighty, so back here everything is done. Fuel pumps are set, 1 remains on for the APU, and that's pretty much it. Alright. Galley power, 2 of them off, and here we are. So back up to the front, and over here, anti-collision light off, fasten seatbelts off, and then let's do the parking checklist, please. So, engine rundown normal, park and brake on, MSUs are still a nav, exterior light set, standby power stays on, fasten seatbelts off, max indicators, quick check, no exceedances, nope, okay, reset. So max indicators reset, ATMs, Off, hydraulic panel checked, battery switch on, fuel panel is checked, and ECS panel is checked. Shutdown checklist complete. And with that, my friends, welcome to Palma de Mallorca. I do hope you all enjoyed the flight. As always, leave your feedback in the comments underneath the video. Like, comment, and subscribe. And if you really love what I'm doing on this channel, then I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. But most importantly, let me know how you liked our flight. Let me know how you liked our first impression of the TriStar. Really looking forward to that feedback. And if you like what we're doing, then I'm looking forward to seeing you all again on the next one.